Engineering is an interesting and worthwhile career. In this mechanized age, the call for engineers becomes ever greater. The world today depends upon its engineering craftsmen for building its railways, its bridges, its cranes, its ships, and 100 other necessary items. We are looking at some of these now. Have you ever spared a moment to consider the one power upon which so many of these rely for their operation? It is electricity, the power with almost limitless possibilities for service to man, used universally in our homes, to run so many of our everyday appliances, and our factories, used for driving our machines, our tools, even our runabout trucks. We find electric motors in use everywhere, both on ships at sea and on land, wherever there is a job of work to do. In Norwich, at the three works of Laurence Scott and Electro Motors, founded in 1883 by that electrical pioneer, Mr. W.H. Scott, there are opportunities for apprenticeship to this most important branch of engineering. Here an apprentice can be taught the various branches of the work which is interesting, offers considerable scope for advancement, and makes a great contribution to the material wealth of the nation. This film shows you some of these apprentices at work and the jobs they are doing. The making of an electric motor depends upon many different kinds of work or trades. Some trades involve the use of machines, such as lathes, for cutting and shaping the parts of an electric motor. The craftsmen who operate these we call turners. Alan from the Avenue Road School, Norwich, is one who is learning to use a lathe. And now an apprentice from the county, another Alan, from the Melton Constable Modern Secondary. David joined us from the Chrome Modern Secondary and is just finishing his training, so he can justly consider himself a craftsman. The upkeep of the cutting tools used on these machines is a specialist job, and many have this training included in their course, like Raymond from the Helsden Modern Secondary. The apprentices we have seen are all handling machines, but this is in itself not sufficient. It is also necessary to get the feel of the various metals and tools, and so our future craftsmen are moved around the factory as much as possible to gain experience, like Alan, whom we have already seen, and who is now building a commutator, a very essential part of an electric motor. This type of experience is especially valuable because it not only gives the apprentice a sound knowledge of the construction of an electric motor, but what is equally important, it enables him to understand the reason for the job he is doing, and so makes his work more interesting, as Dennis from Wyndham is finding. Quite a different type of work and a separate trade to that we have seen involves the fitting to our motors of the insulated copper conductors or windings through which the electric current will flow. In every trade, the firm relies upon its older craftsmen with many years of experience for the most important jobs. And it is from these that the young apprentice learns his job, like Michael from the Loddon County Primary School. William, who was educated at the Gurney Henderson School in Norwich, as well as Michael from St. Michael's School at Inglethorpe, which is near King's Lynn, and Keith from the Lowestoft School and the Lowestoft Technical College, are three apprentices who made such progress that they were soon able to tackle small machines entirely on their own. This is the reward for diligence. When all the parts of our electric motor have been made, each in a separate department in the factory, they are brought together for assembly. This is a man's job, but Jack, who only left the Helsden School a year ago, is already at home in his new career. The craftsmen who assemble these machines are called fitters, and the work, fitting. This again is usually a separate trade, although the apprenticeship covers a course in both fitting and turning. The young apprentice, like Jack, works with a skilled craftsman for some time in order to learn the trade. But later, when he gets proficient in his work, he will be entrusted with the assembly of complete machines by himself. The work is both interesting and varied, as there are many different designs, types and sizes of machines made at Norwich. Motors, generators, alternators, in fact, every type of large machine required by modern industry in the country today. Some motors, like this one, may be going to a new power station to help generate our electric power. Others may be going to another factory or to a ship. But wherever it is going, reliability is its first concern. And the young engineer will be encouraged to form habits of careful, accurate workmanship. For it is upon these foundations that the firm has been built. Shall we follow our motor to its destination? After Jack and his mate have completed their motor, it must be tested. This is a very important department in the factory, and here our motor is tested under full power conditions to ensure that it runs correctly and does not overheat. For our motor may have to run for several weeks at a stretch without stopping. And so our motor is completed and is ready for dispatch. All that remains is to load it onto the waiting lorry, which will take it to its destination and the job that awaits it. The destination of this motor is not very far away, for it is going to the new Cliff Key power station at Ipswich. This great modern generating station relies upon a number of Norwich-made motors for its operation. Motors for driving the coal-handling cranes, for most of the coal is brought by sea in ships, and motors for the conveyor belts to deliver the coal into the station. The Norwich 850 horsepower motors for driving the electro-feeder pumps are perhaps the most important in the station. They feed the water into the boilers, which raise the steam for driving the massive turbo alternators. It is these which generate the electricity used in our homes and factories, for working our motors, our lighting, and our radio, and the many other applications that we have seen, and distributed over the country by the vast grid network. The second works in Norwich at Thorpe Road manufacture apparatus for controlling electric motors in much the same way that an electric switch controls the electric light in your home. This is a lighter form of engineering that we have just seen, and some apprentices prefer it, like Michael from Sheringham and Anthony from a Reedham school. They are both building small component parts. These are finally assembled and completed. Gerald, who came to us from the Junior Technical School, is doing this. But now it is time for a tea break. These breaks are provided during both the morning and the afternoon. A special department is devoted to the manufacture of precision instruments, and the work is some of the most accurate in the country. It is within reach of boys who show the necessary degree of skill, like Gerald from the Wensum View School in Norwich. These control panels are typical of the type of work produced at Thorpe Road. We have so far visited 2 of the Norwich factories of Laurence Scott and Electro Motors. There is yet a third, the Foundry at Thorpe Road, where the firm produces its castings. Some lads prefer foundry work, like Bernard, who also comes from Helston. There are various branches to this work which involves woodwork for making the patterns, because before a casting can be made, a wooden pattern must be produced the exact shape of the future casting. This is made by a pattern maker. Bernard and the foundry man with whom he is working have now made an exact imprint of a bed plate for a ship's cargo winch from the wooden pattern in moulding sand. Cores of baked sand are carefully placed, and it is into the space left between the imprint and the core that the molten iron is poured. This white-hot molten iron is drawn off into a ladle, when required, from the furnace or cupola. It is always fascinating to watch the molten metal drawn from the furnace and to see the shower of sparks that accompanies this process. An overhead crane takes the ladle to the mould, where Bernard and the foundrymen are waiting to receive it. The course of training that the apprentice receives is suited to cover the whole range of processes, from the making of the moulds and cores to the actual pouring of the metal and the subsequent treatment of the casting. The young foundryman is also given some training, as opportunity permits, in the pattern shop and one of the machine shops. When the casting has cooled sufficiently, the crane is used to lift it from its bed of sand. Bernard's job is now to knock out the cores, which are made of sand, from the inside of the casting, and generally to clean it up. Another bed plate for another ship's cargo winch has been produced. It only remains to trim off any runners before passing it to the machine shop. And Bernard can take pride in another job well done and more knowledge gained. The work of machining these large castings is entrusted to skilled craftsmen. But as often as possible, apprentices assist in these operations, which include planing, turning, boring, drilling, and many other intricate operations before the castings are ready for assembly. The work in assembling ship's cargo winches from these various parts is similar in many ways to the motor which we watched. Apprentices' courses are arranged for them to spend some time working on each type of machine made by the firm. In this way, they can obtain a more balanced experience of the work, which is always invaluable in after years. Any apprentice who makes the grade and shows conscientiousness is encouraged to stay with the firm when his apprenticeship ends. For in such a large firm, employing several thousand hands, there are always opportunities becoming available through older ones retiring. The lad on the right comes from the county, the Durham Modern Secondary, which he left a year ago. His name is Andrew. Another ex-pupil from the Helsden Modern Secondary is youthful Michael on the left. He has only been with the firm a matter of a few weeks, but he looks quite happy in the job he's selected for a career. These electric winches, which Andrew and Michael are helping to assemble, must of necessity be very strongly and carefully made, for they are mounted on the open decks of ships which trade all over the world. They may be subjected to the blazing heat of the tropics or the freezing winter seas of a North Atlantic hurricane. And being fixed to the open deck, they have no protection from the elements. No wonder, then, that great care has to be taken when assembling them, for on no account must seawater be allowed to enter the winch, or it will very quickly ruin it. Laurence Scott and Electromotors were the first firm to introduce a satisfactory all-electric winch over 50 years ago. And since then, they have literally taken the name of this Norwich firm to the four corners of the earth, for they are fitted to ships of the principal British and continental shipping lines, ranging from the largest liner in the world, the Cunard White Star, Queen Elizabeth, to the smallest tramp bringing coal to the Norwich power station, as we shall see in a short while. In fact, during a recent year, it was found that 3 out of 4 of all the ships built in the British Isles were fitted with Norwich-made electric winches or motors. The firm are justly proud of this record, which has been built so largely upon reliability and the good workmanship of the craftsmen that built them. Quite often, the shipping companies require the firm's help to supervise the overhaul of a winch, or perhaps the fitting of a spare part on a ship returning to port. This is work which the younger craftsmen enjoy, especially those with a desire to travel. And so another ship's cargo winch is completed to speed the cargoes into and out of the country and help the vital imports and exports that are so necessary for our existence and prosperity. The winch may be for the small coaster bringing coal to Norwich power station, or a Dutch liner, or some other continental ship, or even the great liner Queen Elizabeth. Let us visit this ship at Southampton and watch the Norwich-made winches grouped round her foremast, unloading cargo. For in addition to over 2,000 passengers, she carries many hundreds of tons of cargo. These winches are similar to the one young Andrew and Michael were helping to build. So the importance of the work they were engaged upon is obvious. And now, technical knowledge. It has long been recognized that the successful engineer is the one who can work not only with his hands, but also with his head. He depends then upon his practical experience gained in the workshop and his ability to use that experience. This can only be gained by a certain amount of study, and to help, the firm arranges for an engineering course at the Norwich City Technical College at Ipswich Road. Here, the apprentice will learn all about the various metals and tools he handles in the workshop, as well as a knowledge of electricity and much other interesting and instructive information connected with his work. He must, for instance, be able to read an engineering drawing. Facilities are usually granted for apprentices to attend the college during the day, as well as the evening, in cases where this will benefit the student. Much of the work at the college is given to experiments, for in this way, the work is made more interesting as well as instructive. The course is usually arranged to suit the work's apprenticeship, which begins at school-leaving age and will continue until the age of 21. Deferment of military service is obtained for all bona fide apprentices. A careful watch is kept for apprentices who show particular adaptability for posting into special departments for training, such as the design, planning, or drawing offices, which you're seeing here. Many of those now holding senior positions in this firm, and also in other engineering firms, started their careers as works apprentices here. The company realizes that some relaxation is necessary in order to develop physical fitness and mental alertness. At Hall Road, there is a centre for an active social and sports club run by the members of the firm with many sections to suit individual tastes. Both the cricket and the football teams, the Gothics, are widely known throughout the local counties. Tennis is another active pastime during the summer, and the rifle range. A motoring club for the owners of motorcycles and cars provides sporting events such as trials and map reading runs, a series of interesting lectures and films during the winter months. The photographic club is very popular among the photographers at the firm, and the well-equipped darkroom at Hall Road is in great demand, especially before the annual exhibition. There are so many branches in the social club, covering as they do indoor and outdoor pastimes, that the members of the firm can always find something of interest, summer or winter. And lastly, the employees themselves, the people like you and me, the people who build these motors and machines. and the canteens, where a ready hot meal can be obtained at a reasonable price. And the welfare section. In conclusion, may we say that we cannot pretend in a short film of this nature to show you even a fraction of the many interesting applications of electric power upon which the name of this Norwich firm has been built and is famous all over the world. Similarly, we have shown you only a few of the many operations connected with the making of electric motors and control gear. We trust, however, that the little you have seen has been of interest, and what is more, proof that a worthwhile career in engineering is available at the works of Laurence Scott and Electro Motors Ltd.